Yo, what's up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So Dillian Whyte has been sharing his thoughts on Oleksandr Usyk as a heavyweight, and also in regards to Oleksandr Usyk potentially fighting Anthony Joshua. But yeah, Dillian Whyte, I believe, conducted this interview with Sky Sports, and we'll go through what he said briefly. So let's get into it. Dillian Whyte was talking about Usyk at heavyweight and potentially fighting Joshua, and he said the following: "It's a dead fight. Usyk hasn't looked good. Who's he fought at heavyweight? Chaz Witherspoon? Derek Chisora? He looked terrible in both of those fights. He's got no punch power. Okay, he's got good movement, but it's not nice movement. At cruiserweight, his movement was nice, but at heavyweight, it's not nice. It's just so negative. The Derek Chisora fight, I watched the first 6 rounds, and when Derek tired, I was like, this is rubbish. Derek was out on his feet, and he couldn't even stop him. He was punching him clean, and Derek was walking through. There's only a few fighters special enough to replicate what they did at cruiserweight. David Haye is a good fighter, but he didn't replicate what he did at cruiserweight. Enzo Macronelli is the same." By the way, Dillian Whyte is talking absolute nonsense there because Enzo Macronelli never made a run at heavyweight, but nevertheless he continues to say Evander Holyfield stands out, Evander Holyfield did it. Dwight Mohamed Qawi and all of those guys moved up and did well at heavyweight, but Usyk hasn't got the style. By the way, again, Dillian Whyte is absolutely wrong there in regards to Dwight Mohamed Qawi. Great fighter, no doubt, but at heavyweight, the guy did next to nothing. Most notably, he got knocked out by an old George Foreman. Nevertheless, Dillian went on to say now he's 231 pounds. He's going to struggle to carry that weight around the ring, and he isn't 1 ounce stronger. Those are the words of Dillian Whyte. So, reading that, first and foremost, he got a few things wrong there. Most notably being that Enzo Macronelli campaigned at heavyweight. He never made a run at heavyweight, and Dwight Mohamed Qawi never was a successful heavyweight. So Dillian is wrong on both of those occasions, but nevertheless, it's big talk coming from a guy who said he wouldn't fight Usyk due to the fact that he's not known and doesn't speak English. Bear in mind, after those comments, he went on to fight Oscar Rivas, an unknown Colombian who can't speak English. But yeah, ultimately, it's big talk from Dillian Whyte. It sounds good, but really there's very little substance behind what he's saying. I mean, he's talking about Oleksandr Usyk versus Derek Chisora. I mean, anybody with a pair of eyes would say that Usyk did a much better job on Chisora than Dillian Whyte did. I mean, arguably, Dillian Whyte lost the first fight to Chisora. I actually felt he nicked it personally, but it was a very close fight, and many people felt Dillian Whyte lost. And obviously, he needed the rematch to conclusively beat Derek Chisora. Obviously, in the second fight, he knocked out Chisora in, the 11th round? But even that fight was life and death. He was losing that fight until the knockout. And let's be honest, going into the 11th round, Derek got a point deduction. That made him change his style up, took more risks, and he got knocked out. So let's just be honest. Dillian Whyte had far more problems with Derek Chisora than Oleksandr Usyk did. It's just that simple. Yeah, don't get me wrong, at times Derek was giving Usyk problems physically, but at the end of the day, in terms of scoring criteria, Oleksandr Usyk conclusively beat Derek Chisora, more so than Dillian Whyte did. So for Dillian Whyte to criticise that performance from Usyk is a bit of, it's the case of a pot calling the kettle black, you know? I mean, it's not like Dillian washed Derek in both fights, let's be real about it. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it's big talk coming from a guy who said he wouldn't fight Usyk, and that he's got no interest in fighting Usyk due to the fact he doesn't speak English, and he's not known. And by the way, Tyson Fury himself said the same thing about Usyk, basically parroting what Dillian Whyte said. Nobody cares about foreigners, he doesn't speak English, I'm not going to fight him, he brings nothing to the table. So I hear all of these heavyweight fanboys, whether they be Tyson Fury fanboys, Anthony Joshua fanboys, Dillian Whyte fanboys, all of these guys say Usyk isn't shit, but certain guys in the division seem to think otherwise, based on what they've said, based on their actions. And even Team Joshua, Eddie Hearn is saying, well, potentially, we might vacate. Now, I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, I'm just saying what Eddie Hearn said, He gave me some red flags in regards to Joshua versus Usyk. So we've got this guy in Oleksandr Usyk, who apparently, according to all of these heavyweight fanboys, isn't shit. He went life and death with Chisora, with Chaz Witherspoon. By the way, despite winning every round against Chaz Witherspoon, he's not shit, he's looked terrible, but all of these guys in the division seem to be acting otherwise. At the end of the day, these guys know, the people around these guys know, that Oleksandr Usyk is some sort of threat in the heavyweight division. Again, I'm not saying this guy beats Whyte, Fury, AJ, I'm not saying that, but all I'm saying is I believe he is a threat, and I believe he's dangerous for any heavyweight in the world. Hence why, as a boxing fan, I want to see him fight any one of these guys. But obviously, he's the WBO Mando, therefore Anthony Joshua is in line. Hence why, that's the fight I'm calling for. If that fight does happen, like I've said previously, I give all parties involved credit, and whoever wins that fight gets full credit from me. I just don't get the resentment towards Oleksandr Usyk. He done something at cruiserweight that no current fighter in the scene has done. He became undisputed while winning all of the belts in his opponent's backyard. When he did that, he was getting credit, he was getting applause, rightly so. But as soon as he moved to heavyweight and started to call a couple of names, that's when the resentment, that's when the hate started. What is this, a fucking nursery school? A fucking protection program? All boxing fans want to see is the best fights. And right now, undisputed is not happening. What's the next best fight for Joshua? It's Oleksandr Usyk out of all of the realistic opponents. Not Andy Ruiz 3, after Andy got dropped by a shot to bits Chris Arreola. Not Dillian Whyte, coming off getting knocked out by a fucking pensioner in Povetkin. The most interesting current fight available to Joshua is Oleksandr Usyk. It's as simple as that. And most people agree so. Most people who just want to see good boxing would rather see Joshua fight Usyk than Dillian Whyte a second time or Andy Ruiz a third time. Simple as that. And also, we heard this nonsense that Dillian Whyte was mandatory for 1,000 days by certain people, which was a complete lie, by the way. Dillian Whyte became mandatory in July 2019 and he got knocked out in August 2020. He was mandatory for just over a year for the WBC. Oleksandr Usyk has been mandatory since June 2019. So coming up 2 years, Oleksandr Usyk's been mandatory, longer than Dillian Whyte ever was. But the narrative isn't the same when it comes to Oleksandr Usyk. And by the way, also, Dillian was a guy who turned down final eliminators with the WBC in Luis Ortiz. So, it's absolutely ridiculous, man. Absolutely ridiculous. The fact of the matter is, as soon as Oleksandr Usyk moved to heavyweight, this fucking wave of resentment and hate started because, for whatever reason, Oleksandr Usyk makes these guys feel uncomfortable. Maybe they feel he's got a chance at beating their guy. I've seen hate from Tyson Fury fanboys, Deontay Wilder fanboys, Dillian Whyte fanboys, and mainly Anthony Joshua fanboys. And me personally, I'd favour Joshua to beat Usyk, as it stands right now. Maybe as we get closer, if it happens, maybe I'll change my mind. But gun to my head right now, I would favour Anthony Joshua to beat Oleksandr Usyk, truth be told. But I do think it's a hard fight. I do think it's an interesting fight. But for whatever reason, people asking for that fight, wanting to see it, are apparently asking for too much. And when we heard Eddie Hearn say that, Usyk is most likely for Joshua next, but there are other options and we may vacate. When we heard that, a lot of us took that as a red flag and we raised concern. Apparently that's wrong as well. Again, I've got no idea how that scenario is going to play out. Maybe Joshua does fight Usyk. All I'm saying is, what Eddie Hearn said to me came across as a red flag. Again, I'm not predicting Joshua to duck Usyk. I'm not predicting him not to duck Usyk. All I'm doing is, I'm calling it how I see it in real time. I'm not batting for Joshua. I'm not batting for Fury. I'm not batting for Wilder. I'm not batting for Dillian Whyte. I'm not batting for Oleksandr Usyk. All I want to see is good fights. And we've definitely segued in regards to this video. But as for Dillian Whyte, I mean, this interview would have a bit more substance if Dillian actually beat Derek Chisora convincingly. Let's say he fought him once, knocked him out in 5 rounds. At this point, the interview would have a lot more substance behind it, but that never happened. Dillian went life and death with Derek both times. He struggled in both fights, arguably lost the first fight. And now he's out here begging for a Joshua rematch, saying that Joshua needs to fight him and not Usyk, while, by the way, in the past, turning down a straight shot at Anthony Joshua, turning down an IBF eliminator with Kubrat Pulev, turning down WBC eliminators with Luis Ortiz. Dillian Whyte's problem is he talks too much. he alienates himself from hardcore boxing fans. You know, yes, he's a fun fighter. He does take risks when he is in the ring, no doubt about it. And yeah, he's a good heavyweight all around, but the guy just talks too much, man. Dillian needs to stick to boxing. Stop doing these fucking interviews, man, because every single time he makes an ass of himself. You know, this guy could have fought Joshua already in a rematch. He was offered that fight and he turned it down. He could have fought Luis Ortiz in a WBC eliminator, but he turned it down. He could have fought Kubrat Pulev in an IBF eliminator, but guess what? He turned it down. Point being, Dillian has had plenty of chances in the heavyweight division, which he's not taken. And now he's out here talking shit in regards to other fighters who are on the verge of a title shot. So yeah, Dillian just needs to settle down. He'll get his chance, he'll get his shot. Just when you do get it again, don't turn it down this time. Simple as that. And yeah, again, hopefully we get Anthony Joshua versus Oleksandr Usyk. It's a great fight. And yeah, it's one that boxing fans would be intrigued over. So yeah, I'm gonna end this one here. I could go on, but what's the point really? Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy. Peace.